Okay, so have you ever noticed how sometimes, talking about what you do for a living can feel kind of tricky?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's almost like you spend so much time doing it that,
And you can't actually explain it.
exactly, yeah. Like,
Right.
especially at parties or networking events or like even, oh God, job interviews. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And that's exactly why we're diving into this awesome guide today. It's called Describing Your Job, a comprehensive guide.
Love the title.
Yeah, right. Super straightforward. And it's full of really great tips to, help you talk about your job confidently and just make it engaging no matter who you're talking to. You know what I mean?
For sure. And it starts with like the absolute basics, like having the right vocabulary.
Which, okay, might seem obvious, but I think sometimes we forget how important that is.
Totally. Like knowing your job title, obviously.
Mhm.
But then like your industry and even being able to describe like the setting of your workplace, where you actually do your work.
Mhm.
It's like all of that sets the foundation for a good explanation.
It really is. It's like, I don't know, if you're building a house, right? Like you need a solid foundation before you can do anything else.
100%.
Yeah.
And speaking of foundations, the guide has this really interesting point about job titles.
Oh, tell me.
It's not just about like memorizing a fancy name, right?
Yeah.
It's more about understanding how those titles, like they've evolved over time. Like think about it. We've gone from like traditional roles like secretary to now it's like virtual assistant, salesman to like customer success manager.
Oh my God, you're so right. Like it really reflects how much work itself has changed.
Yeah.
But what about those of us with job titles that are, I don't know, a little more unique? Like I'm thinking ethical hacker or maybe meme librarian.
Ooh, those are good.
Yeah, like how do you even begin to explain those without getting a blank stare?
Right. That's where I think like the art of breaking things down comes in. The guide suggests that even for those like head-scratching job titles, you can make them relatable, like by just focusing on that core function. So like an ethical hacker, they might say something like, I help companies find like vulnerabilities in their systems to prevent cyber attacks.
Makes sense.
Or a meme librarian could be like, I curate and organize internet memes for research and educational purposes.
Okay, yeah, totally. So it's about finding that common ground.
Yeah.
And explaining it in a way that resonates with anyone, regardless of their background.
100%.
Okay, that makes sense. So I've got my basic vocab down. Let's say I can nail my elevator pitch. Now, how do I go beyond just the job title and actually describe my responsibilities? Because it's not just about what I do, it's also about how I explain it.
Right. You're totally right. And that's what the guide dives into next.
Yeah.
It really emphasizes using strong action verbs to kind of paint a more vivid picture of what you do. So instead of saying I work with clients, you could say I advise clients on their financial strategies.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That is way more engaging and specific. But I also feel like I struggle with showcasing my accomplishments, without sounding like I'm bragging.
Oh, for sure. That's a tough one.
Yeah. Any tips for that?
Well, the guide has this great section about quantifying your achievements. It suggests using numbers and concrete examples whenever you can. So instead of just saying, I increased sales, you could say something like, I implemented a new marketing strategy that resulted in a 20% increase in sales.
Oh, I see. It's kind of like a showing, not just telling. It makes it more tangible and impactful.
Exactly. And the guide even recommends using the STAR method, especially for job interviews. It's like a framework that helps you structure your achievements in a really clear and compelling way.
Wait, the STAR method? Have I heard of that?
Yeah, it's a pretty popular one.
I think I have, but I'm a little fuzzy on the details. Remind me how it works again.
Oh yeah, for sure. So STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. It's basically like a storytelling technique that helps you highlight your accomplishments, But you do it by providing context, outlining the challenge, then you describe your specific actions, and then you emphasize that positive outcome.
Okay, so instead of just saying I'm a great problem solver, I could actually tell a story about a specific situation where I identified a problem, then took action, and then achieved a positive result.
Exactly. It's like having a secret weapon for making your achievements really stand out.
Ooh, this is brilliant. I'm already thinking about how I can use this in my next job interview.
It's such a game changer. And what's so interesting to me is that even though this guide focuses on describing your job to other people, I actually think going through these exercises can help you understand your own work better too.
Oh, that's so true. It's like you're taking a step back and really examining like what you do and why it matters.
100%.
Okay, cool. So we've got the basics down, we've got vocabulary, we've got like, how to structure those descriptions. But the guide also dives into something else that I find really interesting. It's how work culture varies around the world.
Yes.
I'm super curious to hear your take on that.
Oh, this is where things get really interesting. Because, think about it. Understanding those cultural nuances, it's crucial, especially now. In our increasingly globalized world.
Yeah, totally. And the guide mentions how work-life balance, communication styles, and even just concepts of hierarchy and teamwork, they can be so different from country to country. Yeah. And it's important to know about that.
100%. For example, in some cultures, working long hours is seen as a badge of honor.
Yeah.
You're dedicated.
Yeah.
But then in other places, a strict 35-hour work week is the norm.
Right. It's totally different expectations.
Yeah. And then similarly, communication styles can be so different. It can be super direct and to the point, or it can be much more indirect and nuanced.
So true. I once had a colleague from Japan who was incredibly polite, but also really indirect in his feedback. And it took me a while to understand that a seemingly positive comment might actually be hinting at an area for improvement.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a whole learning curve.
It's all about being mindful of those differences and just respectful.
Yeah.
That could make a huge difference in building those strong working relationships.
Okay, so this deep dive is already opening my eyes to new ways of thinking about my job and how I present it to the world. But before we wrap up this first part, I have a question for you. Thinking about these cultural differences, how would you adapt your job description for someone from a culture that really values harmony and indirect communication?
Ooh, that's a good question. It really shows how important it is to be aware of those differences, when you're talking about your work. In that kind of situation, I think I'd probably focus more on the collaborative parts of my job.
Yeah.
And maybe downplay any individual achievements just a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
And I'd definitely be super mindful of my tone and my word choice.
Okay.
I'd go for a more humble approach, maybe a little less assertive. Just kind of finding that balance between showcasing your skills, but also being respectful of those, cultural sensitivities.
It's like a delicate dance, isn't it? You got to learn the steps.
Totally.
This deep dive has been so insightful. We've uncovered so many practical tips from this guide, from crafting that perfect intro to weaving in that cultural awareness.
For sure.
But I know our listeners are probably eager to put this knowledge into action. Any advice on how to practice? How to make it feel a little less intimidating?
Yeah. I think practice is key, just like any skill, right?
Yeah.
Start by chatting with friends or family about your work.
Right.
Just get comfortable talking about it. You could even record yourself.
Oh, interesting.
And listen back. See if there's anything you want to tweak or change. Don't be afraid to try different approaches.
Okay. Yeah.
Until you find something that feels good, feels authentic.
Yeah, finding your own style.
Yeah.
And hey, if you're really brave, try explaining your job to your pet.
Oh, I love that.
They're great listeners.
They are. They don't judge.
Even if they might not fully grasp all the complexities of data analysis.
Yeah, exactly. It's a judgment-free zone.
Totally.
It's funny. What's really interesting to me is that even though this guide is about describing your job to other people, I think the process of going through these exercises, it can help you understand your own work better too.
Oh, that's so true. You're almost forced to look at it from a different angle.
Yeah, it's taking a step back.
And, examining it.
Yeah.
I know for me, even just thinking about how I'd explain my job to someone from a different culture, it's made me appreciate those unique parts of my job, in a whole new way.
Totally. It's like holding up a mirror to your professional self and seeing things, with fresh eyes.
Totally. And, as we're kind of wrapping up this deep dive, I think it's worth remembering, talking about our jobs, it doesn't have to be this dry, boring recitation of facts.
No, not at all.
It can actually be a chance to connect with people, share your passions, maybe even inspire others.
I love that.
It's about storytelling, right? Not just listing tasks.
Yes.
And I think especially for our listeners who are all clearly interested in self-improvement and professional development, mastering this skill, it can open doors in so many ways.
Oh, absolutely. Like it can help you network better,
Right.
nail that job interview,
Yeah.
even just feel more confident and articulate in like social settings.
Yeah,
It's about owning your expertise
totally.
and sharing it with the world.
I love that. Well said. This deep dive has been such a rewarding journey through like the art of describing your job.
Yeah, sure.
But before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with one final like thought-provoking question and something to ponder. If you had to pick just one thing, what unique aspect of your job would you highlight to make someone truly understand what you do? What's that one detail, that one story, that one feeling that like really captures what your work experience is all about?
Wow, that is a fantastic question to end on. It really makes you think. It pushes us to go beyond just like the surface level,
Yeah.
the job titles and the responsibilities, and really get to the heart of why our work matters.
Right. It's like finding that perfect, elevator pitch for your job. But instead of trying to like sell yourself, it's more about just sharing what you do and why it's important to you.
Totally. Like maybe it's the problem you're solving or the people you connect with every day or like that creative spark that you bring to life. It's about finding that one thing that makes your work feel unique and fulfilling.
I love that. And I think like by sharing that little piece of ourselves, it not only helps others understand what we do, but it also helps us connect with them on a deeper level. It's like you're saying, this is what I do and this is why it matters to me.
Yeah, beautifully said. It turns the conversation into something more meaningful. It's not just an exchange of information. It's a real, genuine human connection. And this whole deep dive has been such a great example of that.
I think so too. We really went beyond just like the technical stuff, like how to describe your job, and we explored like, the deeper meaning and the impact of our work.
100%. We covered so much ground, like from vocabulary and, sentence structures, all the way to cultural nuances and personal reflections. We talked about how to craft a good introduction, how to showcase your accomplishments, even how to like talk about the challenges you face at work.
And I think the biggest takeaway for me is that like talking about our work can be a really powerful way to connect with people, to share those passions, and to show off our unique contributions to the world.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So to all of our amazing listeners out there, go forth and describe your jobs, do it with confidence, clarity, and, don't forget to add your own personal touch.
Yeah, let your personality shine through.
Exactly. You never know what connections you might make or what opportunities might come up just from a simple conversation about what you do.
Happy describing, everyone.
And until next time, keep diving deep.